morning. If you have a Bible, you want to go to Luke chapter 6. If you don't have a Bible, I'll do my best to have the scriptures on the overhead behind me. We are nearing the conclusion of our Epiphany series called Manifest. We have Transfiguration Sunday coming soon. And as we think about this series that we've been in, I hope you've been reading the Gospel of Luke. I hope it's been helpful to you as you think about all the ways in which God, through the person of Jesus Christ, demonstrated not just that God exists, but his character. I don't know if you've ever given much thought to the fact that you know who God is and what God is like by watching Jesus navigate in life. I think there's a lot of us when we think questions like, I wonder what God thinks about me, or I'd love to know, I'd love to have coffee with you sometime, and maybe in a vulnerable point in the conversation, you would share with me what you really think God thinks of you. I think for most people, they wrestle with what God thinks of them. Most of us have a list of reasons why God wouldn't really dig us that much, all the things that would trouble God about my life, and all the ways in which I don't measure up, and all the ways in which I get it wrong. I think we are so filled with that kind of thinking that sometimes as we reflect upon what God might think about us on a particular day, most people that I know anyway, personally, wrestle with God thinking much good of them. I think what's wonderful about studying the Scripture, particularly the Gospels, and as we've been in the Gospel of Luke, completely appropriate comments for our study this morning. If you've ever wondered how God would treat you, just look at Jesus. If you ever wonder what God would say to you, just listen to Jesus. The Hebrew writer says that Jesus is the exact representation of the Father. The exact representation. So as we think about this, we have seen Jesus be announced as the Messiah, acknowledged, anointed, affirmed in his baptism. We've talked about how Jesus has gone back to his hometown after having a somewhat productive ministry, a healing ministry, to be rejected by the home crowd or the home team, as it were. We talked about how Jesus had reoriented the entire lives of those who would follow him, how he manifested his glory and how he called them into a new mission. And last week we talked about the Sermon on the Plain in Luke chapter 6, where Jesus called the 12 together. The interesting thing about the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, is that Jesus continually prepares his disciples for the inevitable outcome of his death, burial, resurrection. And they never get it. The whole time. The lights never come on. They never really understand it. When it happens, they are beyond themselves. They go into grief and all kinds of things, even though the Lord has prepared them time and time again. And so what you'll see as you read through the Gospel of Luke is that you'll see high points of popularity when everybody loved Jesus. And then, except of course the religious establishment who never loved him really, they tried to kill him from day one, if you recall, where we've been in past sermons. But Jesus will have, by way of the consensus vote of the general populace, a very high, favorable popularity with people. But that will decline and decline and decline and decline through the Gospels as the teaching becomes more specific, perhaps, as people realize that following Christ is not just about what you can get from him, but about what he might ask of you in return. And so Jesus begins as early as chapter 6 in Luke's text to talk to the disciples honestly about the cost of following him. That's not something that we talk about at parties. It's not a part of our evangelism strategy that we have truly honest conversations with people. The reality is, church, if you follow Jesus, it will cost you something. There are costs to being a disciple.